Good evening and welcome to Pop Culture Tonight, Monsters of Pop Culture. I'm Patrick Phillips. Every Saturday this month, I'll be live at 8/7 Central with spooktacular guests and content celebrating all things Halloween. Tonight, talented creature and effects artist Ed Edmunds joins us to discuss his craft, incredible creatures, and what it's like working with his amazing staff at Distortions Unlimited to create monstrous props for celebrities like Alice Cooper and Dick Van Dyke. Ed, thanks so much for joining us here on Pop Culture Tonight.
Yay, I'm here.
You're here. How are you this evening?
Very good.
Good. You know, we should get started with that question that everyone asked you like a million times a year. How in the world did you get started making monsters?
Well, I was a kid growing up in Long Grove, Illinois, and I loved monsters and outer limits and I started making stuff and really didn't, other than making monsters for Halloween and so forth, it didn't do much until I lost a costume contest in up in Greeley at UNC, the college I was going to, and I lost it to a mask I had painted for a local novelty store. I used to take, cheap masks and paint them with a paintbrush and make them look better. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, well, I'll just make a mask and take what I've learned and win these contests, because the prize was a $300 stereo, which, $300 doesn't sound like much now, but back in the late '70s, that was a lot of money. And
sure.
And so I started the costume, showed it to the guy I was painting the mask for, not like for any good reason except look what I made. And he's like, could you make more for the store? And that was it. That's how it began. I even turned down a scholarship to make masks for college art credit, and thinking that I couldn't make a living at it.
And I understand that you were inspired by like The Outer Limits, Star Trek. What were some of your other inspirations back then?
Oh, mercy. Planet of the Apes was gigantic. And Outer Limits, there was actually, it was the vibe of Outer Limits and a few of the characters, Architects of Fear and Keeper of Purple Twilight, but the one that impressed me the most was the Sixth Finger with David McCallum, I think it is. Mm-hmm. He had the big head and the pointed ears, and I was so smitten by this stuff. I didn't just watch it. I had a best friend, and we'd sit up late at night and watch Outer Limits and things. I was having a totally different experience. I was really, really wanting to be the monsters, and it just, the business found me eventually.
As we're talking here, we're actually looking at some B-roll from some of the amazing creations that you guys have done there at Distortions Unlimited. And Ed, a lot of times when I have actors on or I have authors on, I'll ask them, what is your favorite book that you've written? Or what is your favorite role that you've taken? So in your case, what is your favorite monster or creation?
Well, I guess I always have to say the electric chair. And this is something we made in the mid-'90s. Kind of, it's one of those things. You're doing something. I was trying to think of, well, how could we have a grand finale? And so we came up with this idea of an electric chair. Brainstorm Studios threw it, and we had it sculpted, and it was really cool, and it was super primitive. We just had a big old motor with a pulley and thrashing around and smoke and screaming. In fact, I think the screaming at that time was a boombox plugged into a cassette player, plugged into a guitar amp for volume.
Wow.
and on a looping phone answering machine tape. I mean, it was so crude back then that the technology was just hadn't stepped up to the plate. And that product changed our company. It's been said that it's changed the industry. I think it just happened to be the thing that came along at the right time. I think the industry was ready, but the haunted house industry saw that thing at the Transworld show, and I thought we'd sell 6. It was the most expensive thing that I know of that the industry had ever had for sale. You know, back then it was paper skeletons and makeup and wigs and stuff. And people saw it, and they talked themselves into buying it because they just wanted it. I'm sure of it. It's the kid and the haunters out there that just, I want that thing. And so then they found out that the news came out, their attendance many times doubled and tripled because of word of mouth. And so then they realized, wow, this could be serious business. And it shifted that prop somehow shifted the industry to think of haunted houses as a profitable enterprise instead of just kind of, we'll make a few $1,000 for charity and, have a few beers while we're setting up.
And you touched on the technology part of and I wanted to talk a little bit about that because I imagine that, when you were doing this 35 plus years ago, obviously it was, you were doing a lot of masks and things of that sort. But now with the technology that we have, and I have to show the sleeping giant, Ed, I have to show everybody because it's incredible. So let's do that. Everybody, this is called the sleeping giant. Take a look.
Hey, be quiet. Don't wake up the giant. He's not in a very good mood.
What the? Hey, what? What's the big idea? Bobo, quiet down. Sheesh.
Bobo, quiet down. I love it, Ed. It is absolutely fantastic. Talk to us, if you would, about what goes into making something that large. I mean, that thing's huge.
Well, we always get a little carried away. We get excited about something, and so we kept, as we delved into animatronics, we kept pushing the barriers, and so at least barriers for us. I'm sure things had been done similar to that, but in theme parks and so on. But anyway, we basically figured out a way. Now we lift it with leverage and double bars and things. It works great. I mean, the failure rate is almost non-existent now. It takes a very large cylinder. I think it's a 5-inch bore cylinder that pulls him up, but it's basically just his head and shoulders that talks and his eyes open, and then his arms move, and they're all connected. And then basically he's a shell down to his feet, and then we have feet and arms that stick out the sleeves. So it's not that big. It's big. He's probably I don't know, 5 foot across and at his shoulders and things. But he goes from sitting about 7.5 feet. He's sitting, and then he stands up, and he's about 12 feet. And it looks more impressive than it is, because when you look under his costume, it's air. No, but it allows us to do that. Yeah, it's air, and then he's got little Bobo, talks to him. We just did a gigantic party. In fact, it was 1 week ago tonight. It was a big Hobbit party, and so we had him and Bobo doing Hobbit jokes and things like that, and it was, we took him and the dragon, a bunch of stuff down, and he was a big hit.
A few years ago, Ed, you and everybody at Distortions Unlimited were part of a really cool documentary series on the Travel Channel. It was called Making Monsters. And I know a lot of our viewers are very familiar with that. I myself, I couldn't get enough of it. I think there were 3 seasons of that show. How did that show affect you and your business then? And is there still an effect even now from Making Monsters?
Well, it has affected us now. I wouldn't say it dramatically changed the company. We kind of went on our merry way. But what I think it did that was wonderful is that it let people that were outside the industry get a peek into what we all do. And it did it in a really good way. It wasn't the typical reality show where, okay, you're the mean boss and you're going to go cuss at the dopey guy and he's going to keep screwing up. And they script all this stuff. And so when they approached us, Nathan Charlotte from Warm Springs, I said that. I said, look, we're not actors, and we don't want to cuss at each other and stuff like this. And he said, no, that is not what we're about. We just want to open the door to the world of your industry. And they stayed true to that. The one thing they didn't stay true to was, he said that they would be like a fly on the wall.
Yeah,
let
right.
me tell you, I couldn't even walk over to Mike because they tried to capture everything live as it happened. So I just want to go ask Mike a question. And they'd be like with me, and they said, where are you going? Well, I just need to ask Mike a question. Well, wait a minute. 10 minutes later, they had the lights over there, cameras and stuff. And it's like, oh, man, it's just a dumb question. But because of that, they saw what it's really like in the industry and what it's really like, and the interaction between us and our clients.
Sure.
And it was wonderful. It was a lot of work for us, but also Warm Springs to put those shows together.
Ed, I came across, after making Monsters, you guys started doing a lot of YouTube videos. And I came across your YouTube recently, and there's this really cool series that you're doing, and it's called Monster Lab. And I was wondering if you could set that up for us, and then I'd love to play the actual trailer for everybody so they could get an idea of what Monster Lab actually is.
Well, there's a lot of people that do how-to videos, and they're very good. Among the best is like the Stan Winston ones. I mean, it's like, oh my gosh, But what I found with a lot of them, as I was looking at them, is it was like intimidating. It's like, say somebody's doing a demonstration of sculpting, and they're in the business and they sell their time and so forth. Well, I think there's kind of they want to keep it mysterious and like really complicated and amazing and so forth because they're selling themselves.
Right.
But that's not. And I'm just like, I was so frustrated when I was young trying to figure out how to do this stuff. Nobody was talking back then. There was no internet. There was no books and stuff. So I had Richard Corson's stage makeup. That was it. And Dick Smith's book. I forget what it was called, but it was wonderful. So I had very little, and I was so frustrated in that, and I just decided, this is not rocket science. And so I just take it to its basic. This is what we do. This is the tools that I use. And most guys, I don't care if they bring out, and I've had some of them come out to Distortions to sculpt. They will have this 3-foot-high thing with drawers and shelves and stuff full of tools. At the end of the day, they use 5. Yes, I've got a bunch too, but if I could throw them all away except probably 5 tools. And so I don't even deal with those things. I don't, there's no need to make it so convoluted. And a guy said it perfectly. He said, I watched a video by Jordu, a sculpting video, and I realized that I couldn't even do what he did, his rough. And so I gave up without even trying. And then he said, he looked at one of the Monster Lab videos and he goes, I could do that. And he did. He sculpted his first mask. So that was kind of the goal. I mean, there's obviously as you evolve, you would want to, watch Jordu and get better and better. But to get in it and actually make something happen and in a weekend have a monster mask, that's very freeing for people and exciting. And so that was the goal, to teach that stuff at its base level so that people could make it happen.
Well, folks, we do have a clip that we'd love to show you. So here is Ed's, hold on, I'm find my thing, Ed's Monster Lab. So take a look.
If I was Picasso, I'd be done. I like to come up with something clever that's kind of the foundation of it. And in this case, it's just weird. Nobody thinks about zombie aliens. He's got just a little bit more to go, but basically that's it. That's the step.
See, you're back for another episode of Monster Lab. I think you're gonna like it. I bet you can't guess what it is. Ah! A bloody eyeball. Let's get started.
A bloody eyeball, Ed.
Somebody's got to do that stuff.
It's great. I think we may have had a couple little audio things there, but everybody needs to go to your YouTube channel. And I was wondering if maybe you could tell folks how they could find it, Ed.
Well, you just go to YouTube and put in Distortions Unlimited. And I don't know, I guess there's some different choices and things, but you can also go to Facebook and go to Distortions Unlimited Official, and any new stuff's put up there, and there's old things on there that you can dig up. But it's kind of all over. If you put Monster Lab Distortions in YouTube, they'll come up.
I know that the community there in Colorado is very important to you, and a lot of what you guys do is very much a part of that. There's something that is called Monster Day. Can you tell us a little bit about Monster Day?
Well, Monster Day is kind of fun. It's one of those kind of grassroots things. I was reading the Don Post book that it's like 600 pages or something, and on one of the pages was talking about Monster Days. And back in the 60s or 70s, they had done this thing called Monster Days, and they had Forrest Ackerman out there and Don Post, and they had people in masks and costumes, and just and I saw all these young teenage boys, and I thought, girls have this princess stuff now, and the boys are just like home playing video games. And I thought, wouldn't it be fun to have something for young monster lover boys? Now, I am dating myself right now as I speak. I'm sure there's a lot of people rolling their eyes. Well, here's what happened. This was the vision I had. And what was so stupid about that vision was, well, of course, the kids came, but their parents came and their grandparents came. And the girls came, and that was probably something that was sticking in my head, a stereotypical thing. Of course, I know better. There's so many gals in the business. It was pretty male dominated back, in the day, in the Universal days and stuff. In fact, the creature from the Black Lagoon, sadly I've forgotten her name, but the sculptor that did that was a woman, and it was absolutely beautiful. And it couldn't be known that a woman sculpted that. So they would have a couple of guys in lab coats with tools standing by the creature from the Black Lagoon sculpture. Mm-hmm. That's how bad it was. So now, you've got Face Off, and man, the girls are in there and loving it. And of course, in the haunted house business, they're very involved in things. And so that vision in my head of this thing being for kids, and especially boys, because that's what it was when I grew up, and that was blown out of the water. And so the city was great. They got behind it. In fact, it was funny. I figured I had to do a sales pitch, and I call Allison at the DDA, Downtown Development Association. Mm-hmm. And so she said, "Oh, that's good. Well, come, we'll have a meeting about it, blah, blah, blah." So I thought, she'd be there with a couple people. Right. It's like Greeley Unexpected, DDA, Greeley Chamber, Greeley Welcoming. Everybody's there, and they're like, and so I come in dressed as Kryptonian Elder, flesh with basically looked like the sixth finger from Outer Limits, in a lab coat by Boncharon. Looked good, and I come in and into this diner, and just wanting to show them what it's like to have a really good monster on the streets, and I sat down, and after everybody had a good laugh, and they were like, "Okay, what are we doing?" And I'm like thinking to myself, don't I have to do a sales pitch first? They had already decided that this was going to be the thing. And so they put their energy behind it. And the first year, and of course, Greeley's not that big. I don't know. It's maybe 150,000 people. So it's not a gigantic town, but the first year, 6,000 people showed up and just filled the streets of Greeley. And so we tried to take it to the next level this last summer, and more people showed up. We had a train and motion simulator and shows and tents, and it's really just kind of gotten out of control. And it to me, it's delightful because it's like, oh, the whole world loves monsters.
Sure.
You know, back in the day, it was just the nerds like me, you know, and now it's like, you know, with Disney and all their movies and stuff, it is a cultural norm. Monsters are everywhere.
Well, we got a couple of questions here, and one is about something that I mentioned in the setup, which was about you guys working with Alice Cooper and Dick Van Dyke. And I was wondering if you could talk to us a little bit about what it was like working with those guys.
Well, first of all, I'll talk about Dick Van Dyke just because it's quick. He is, to me, he's just like Robert Petrie. That's who he seems like, and he's a super nice guy, super funny, and he has loved monsters. He's been doing a monster thing at his house since I believe the '60s. Oh, wow. But there was nothing there, so he had to make his own Frankenstein and stuff back in the early days, and it got bigger and bigger, and he'd have to hire cops to kind of corral people and stuff, and so. He called up one day, and it's Dick Van Dyke, and Janine's, you know, answers the phone, and he says, "Hi, this is Dick Van Dyke," and she's like, "Oh, that's funny. The guy's got the same name as Dick Van Dyke." And then as he's talking, she's realizing,
right, this
is Dick Van Dyke, and she said the hairs just stood up on the back of her neck. So we have been out several times, and he's bought a lot of stuff. That first year, he bought tons of stuff, electric chair and all sorts of things. Right. And then he uses them up, and nowadays, he'll buy all this stuff, and then he sells them to Jim Cameron. And Jim Cameron's right down the street in his neighborhood, and he buys all the junk. So then Dick gets all new stuff. But, yeah, just a wonderful guy. And we're probably going to go out there this year. Marcia and I were talking about that at lunch today, and but then, so that was just a phone call, you know, it just happened. Alice Cooper was a little different. We had hired him to do an appearance at Brutal Planet, which is a haunted house we did in Denver. And so we knew Alice and really liked him. Super nice guy. If you talk to anybody that's met him, he's not like, you know, a rock star. He's like a regular down to earth guy. And so we worked with him, and then he wanted to do an album and call it Brutal Planet. So he asked about that, and Six Flags contacted him and wanted him to be a spokesperson. So we did commercials and things. But this one time he came out to brainstorm for the Brutal Planet tour. He came out to Distortions. And so he and Shep, his original manager, who's an amazing guy too, and Brian, his assistant, and some other stage manager guy, came out to Distortions, and so as we were wrapping up the meeting, Shep had brought a gold disc of the latest CD for Brutal Planet. It was the whole album, but nobody heard it except Shep, and so he's like, "Well, you want to hear this?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And so Alice, we went in my office because I had a sound system in there, and we put this on, and the title song was called Brutal Planet. And so now just a quick reverse. I was a Alice Cooper freak when I was growing up because he was, I loved monsters and I loved music. I mean, I was really super entrenched in both of them. Well, Alice Cooper comes along, and he's the closest thing to a monster in music there is. And so in the 70s, I was a ridiculous Alice Cooper fan. I had snakes in the basement and big ones, like a 14-foot Burmese and reticulated pythons. I had custom silver pants. Let me tell you, I was too nerdy for nerds. I was wearing eye makeup and stuff. This was not, now nowadays anything goes, but back in the 70s, people look at you a little funny, you know, when you had 5-inch platforms and silver pants and stuff. But anyway, so here's what kind of amazes me. And so there's all that. And then, of course, we did the Brutal Planet Haunted House. And then one day, Alice is in my office singing Brutal Planet, which was the name of the haunted house. He'd asked if he could use that. And the lyrics, and he's singing with the CD. And he's like saying, this is great. It's got Old Testament, it's got New Testament. And he said, I love this. And he's singing this song. And I'm like, how does this happen? How can got to be one of the biggest Alice Cooper nerds end up with Alice Cooper in their office singing the words to Brutal Planet and this haunted house we did. I just marvel at that sometimes. But anyway, so that's one thing about the business, and I'm sure people in it recognize this, that it has its moments. There are times when things happen that are so crazy, or people you meet, or something. I mean, it's just a really amazing business to be in or be a part of.
Well, I have to tell you, Ed, I'm a huge fan of you and everybody that works there. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about them as well. I know that your wife, Marcia, is a co-owner there of Distortions Unlimited. And I imagine, like, how did you guys meet? I understand that at some point she worked with you, and then you guys ended up getting married. And now 35 plus years later, this thing is, I mean, it's huge.
Well, you know, poor Marcia. She had a very wonderful life planned ahead. She was taking horticulture, and she was, at the time I met her, she was student teaching and things. And she came to work at Distortions part-time, just to make some money and things. And we ended up falling in love, and I just drug her to the pits of hell for this industry because, it's totally different. Like, her vision of heaven is lilac fields and things. She wants to, in fact, she wants to have some art studio thing out in the country someday called Lilac Fields or something like that. But anyway, but she just got on board and just became a part of the whole monster scene, and really, a lot of times I think people kind of like, oh, that's nice that you work with your wife and include her in this. It's not like that. I mean, she is an integral part of the business and is incredibly involved in every aspect of it, creatively, decision making. It's not like it's I decide and then that everybody jumps in line. It's really it's more, it's almost more Marcia decides. I'm so busy painting and stuff, unless it's really getting down and dirty is something I'm into. She just makes those decisions. Right. But the other thing is the whole crew I don't know how many people have worked at Distortions. I know it's many hundreds, probably thousands, but as the season would come to the end, people would drop off, some would stay, and so on. And we whittled that crew down to a small group of people that are really like a monster-making family. And everybody's very good at what they do, and we can sit down in a meeting and say, this is the crazy idea for the week, and everybody can make it happen. It's really kind of like an effects studio in Hollywood, not quite as sophisticated maybe because the price of these things and the durability has to be tough. But yeah, it's a fun, very, very talented group of people that make it happen.
Well, Ed, I want to thank you so much for being here with us on the program and for being with us on Monsters of Pop Culture. We do this once a year, and you are kind of the king of monsters in a way. So it has been a fantastic time having you here with us on the program, and I hope to have you on again. And best of luck to you and everyone there at Distortions Unlimited. We really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate that, but I think I'm a little bit closer to the court jester, but we'll just leave it at that.
Well, I appreciate it very much. Folks, there he is, Ed Edmunds. And check out their website at distortionsunlimited.com. That's distortionsunlimited.com. Ed, thanks so much again, and happy Halloween to you, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Folks, if you'd like to find out more about the program or Ed, you can do so by heading over to our website at popculturetonight.com. I'd also invite you to please hit that bell up there if you're on YouTube and subscribe to the program so that every time we go live, you'll get a notification knowing that we did. Also, for our friends on Periscope, hello, how are you? Please go ahead and retweet the program out to your friends and followers. We'd love for you to do that. Again, this is something that I sort of kind of just decided we were going to do. I had been doing radio for a very long time, and we decided, you know what, it's time to make this thing a visual. So here we are on YouTube and Periscope, and it's so nice to be with you. So until next time, I'm Patrick Phillips, looking to the stars, wishing you a very unpleasant evening. Good night. Okay, I actually meant pleasant, okay? I was trying to do sort of an Elvira thing, but you get my point. Anyway, thanks so much for listening. We'll see you soon.